We were asked to look at a cold email template for B2B. We found 16 and unpacked what we think the essential common elements are of the recommendations. We've added one really critical missing ingredient. It's important, we've added it in, and we've created our own template that you can base your own cold email template on. So today, I'm going to start with the conclusions right up front, then I'll give you the research that led to those conclusions, and then finally I'll end with our cold email template for B2B. Here's what we learned. Provide a benefit statement and a hint of the action request in the title of the email, the subject of the email. Evidence your research. Hint at a fear of missing out, a competitor and a general thrust on the topic. Show your credibility. Don't mention your product, only that you help. And end with a request. Let's take a look at the research that led us to those conclusions. First one's from close.io, cold email templates that will generate warm leads for your sales team, by Stelly FT. Thank you, Stelly. Forgive me for butchering your name. We've not met. Really quite interesting. Subject lines are key, so a couple of things that they believe are really key. Subject lines are key. Try, can you point me in the right direction? Now, you'll see in my conclusions that I've used a bit of that. I'm not a big fan of that on its own, but let's honour their suggestions for now. Emailing the decision maker directly and ask them to meet. Now, what's missing from this for me is they haven't done any research. I'm taking an educated stab. I would argue in 2015 is just not good enough. Right? Don't take an educated stab. Spend 5 minutes doing some research. It's, I think, 101 stuff. Now, love the blog otherwise, but I think that's a big missing point. Next one, cold email template by breakthrough email. Now, this is arguing at the top a big claim, an 80% response rate. Now, I'm not going to debate that response rate for the moment, but certainly it's a big claim, and they're explaining that if you go down to a fourth email that you're going to pick up about 80% of the respondents. I doubt that sincerely, but I do like generally the approach that they've taken. Firstly the why, then the what. Now here's their template. You can unpack that. Include an appropriate person. I actually don't like these emails. I get a lot of these myself, and I think, you could just have done a tiny bit of research and found out my role in the company, work out whether it's me or not. Ask somebody else. This to me smacks of talking all about you, the seller, and not about me. Now, there are a couple of things in here that I do like, though. I also wrote to person X, person Y, and person Z. Now, if you've read Selling to Veto, that's VITO, very important top officer. If you've read Selling to Veto, that sort of smacks of the same recommendations, and I quite like it. But it's still all about the vendor. Again, I think in contemporary selling, that's just not good enough. Lots I like, a couple of things I don't like. Cold sales, sorry, let me get the title right. The cold sales email template that won 16 new B2B customers by Aaron Ross. Now, this is not a this will do good. This did good. So it's an example of an email template that worked really well for one company. And you can't argue with that evidence. I like that in one sense. A little bit about where emails go wrong, and that's very good. And then they suggest an effective template. Now, a couple of things, where are we? Okay, 10 times prospect companies traction in 10 minutes. That's a big, strong benefit statement in the subject line. It's going to get opened. That I love. I have an idea that I can explain in 10 minutes. Also love that. I recently used it and we got this outcome. So it's a really compelling email. You know already the one thing I wish was in there, and that is because you, company name, does A, B and C, would just be a lovely addition to this. Otherwise, like it lots. Now, from Sidekick by HubSpot, side project of theirs, there are 12 CRM-ready sales email templates that they can use. Now, these templates I think are pretty good. They're quite personalised. By the way, Jill Conrath, she wrote Crazy Busy, I think Selling for Crazy Busy People, or Selling to Crazy Busy People. Worth checking out her work, smart lady. Met her at a conference and we had a couple of subsequent chats. Definitely worth taking a look. I'm going to jump to template number 3 because it's the one that I like the best. Contact first name. Hugh, your latest announcement this week about blah blah got me thinking. At least you've shown some relevance to who I am rather than you send it out to 1,000 people. Now, frankly, the way it's worded, you could actually get away with sending this to quite a lot of people because lots of companies announce frequently. But at least it's hinting at a little bit of research. If you read through these templates, you'll find that Jill's done that consistently through, and I like that. Do want to recommend this one. You'll see notes. You'll see the link in the show notes to this article. I am going to recommend that you take a read of it and look at all of the templates offered there. Finally, the one that's most shared, Facebook shared 3,414 Facebook shares, no LinkedIn shares, 8 Twitter shares. Now, just those data alone, 3,500 Facebook shares, no LinkedIn shares, should give you a hint at the angle this one's taking. Now, mergers and acquisitions makes me think it's going to be a great high-level article. How to write more effective networking emails, double your response rates in 15 minutes or less. Again, that could be well high-level. Frankly, this is though for students. And the large Facebook shares and the no LinkedIn shares should make that really clear that that's the case. So interesting, love that it was shared a lot, but I'm not going to recommend that as one that you spend a lot of time on. Just a quick last one that I'm going to include in the show notes. It's one by me, cold calling email template. Obviously it's a very related topic, and so I recommend you take a quick look at that one if you've got a little more spare time before we draw our conclusions. Here's the essence of what we learned from those cold email templates. Your subject line should offer the benefit succinctly. Ask for help. Can you connect me? Write to more than one person and tell them that you've done so. That's really important. Include your credentials. End with a request for action. Have a template once you know what works for a campaign. When pitching, don't focus on your personal benefit. Explain why it's mutually beneficial. And ensure there are no grammatical or spelling errors in your work. In these reviews, I often disagree with some of the conclusions reached. Today I don't. I agree with all of that. But there's one really important element missing, and that is they haven't done the research. All of that is designed to be really easy. And I would argue that if you're going to make a cold outreach to somebody, you'd better do your homework and you'd better evidence that homework. So let me replay that and slightly reorder those recommendations into what I think the template should look like based on that research, but with that one researched twist. Here's an example of a cold email drawn from this research. Now I'm going to end by giving you the key points from this so that you can build your own cold email template. A quick question about getting sales and marketing on the same page at your company. Hi John, I read a post by Hamish, last name, from a competitor of yours, name them, on LinkedIn in the funnel management group. So basically, where did you find the research? Posing a few questions about alignment, and it got me thinking about your company. Now, see what I've done there? I've actually hinted at something that your competitor's doing that you may not be. What are you doing at your code to get sales and marketing aligned better? I read on your site, pause there, obviously I'm doing some research. I read on your site that you're targeting a big ramp in growth over the next 2 years, and I have to imagine this is one of the big levers that you plan on pulling. Now that's a big assumption from me, but it's an assumption of value that let me say it differently. It's an assumption about something that they should be doing that implies an insight, a little something that I know, but we go much harder than that. Have a look. 2 paragraphs from now. Who's driving alignment at your company? I've emailed name 1, name 2, name 3, even name 4 in your co to ask the same question, but I was really interested in your take on this. Now, that's my little twist on it, because it's not just I've hit everybody. It's actually I really want your opinion. Who's driving the discussion? Are you in that dialogue? Again, if you're not, maybe you should be. Are you in that dialogue? Do you have strong views on the subject? You're probably aware that alignment is a hot topic. We've got some hard data that explains why. For example, companies with better alignment are 67% better at closing deals and are getting 208% more out of their marketing. Hard data, now in this case it's drawn from our own research, but I could have used third-party research if I didn't have my own. And that data came from a study that we did with a little help from leading marketing automation company Marketo. There's a big credibility statement from us. And we've spent most of the last 18 years working with companies around the world to help them to get sales and marketing onto the same page. Big credibility statement. You've got your own version of that. Who should I be talking to? Is it you, or is there someone you can introduce me to? There's my call to action. Now I've allowed for the possibility that it's them, but I've asked them to introduce me, not just tell me. Thanks in advance. Cheers, Hugh. Again, look at my signature block. My title, of course, but also a little bit of my personal cred. Now, if your title doesn't convey that, add in your own credibility. Is it the number of people you're connected with on LinkedIn? Is it how many times that you've helped companies do this thing? What's your own short credibility statement? Now, let me unpack that a little bit and then I'll give you my 7 conclusions. So that's the email template. Let me just unpack that and turn that into 7 very specific recommendations, actions that you can take to make your own cold email template. Firstly, provide a benefits statement with a hint of the action request in the subject of the email. Evidence your research. Don't just do it, show that you've done it. Hint at fear of missing out. Now in this case I've used a competitor and a global push. Get your own version of fear of missing out, but don't be silly about it. Show your personal credibility and your company's credibility. Don't mention the product at all, only that you help, and end with a request, a nice clear request. That's it. So there you have it. My 7 recommendations on a cold email template, born from researching those 16 that I quite enjoyed today. I hope you got a lot of value out of that. I certainly learned a lot from the research and from pulling today's blog together. So I hope you did as well. And if you did, likely others have as well. Couple of quick suggestions if I may. Firstly, if you haven't subscribed, can I encourage you to do so? What that means is that you're the first to hear about these blogs as they come out. We do the show every week. And if you go to mathmarketing.com/blog or youtube.com/mathmarketing, you can subscribe there and you'll get notified as soon as we've posted. Secondly, if you have already, you've got a colleague who hasn't done so and should be enjoying the benefits of this. Maybe they're a customer, maybe they're an old employer, maybe they're an old staff member. Anybody that you think would get value out of this, I'd be super, super grateful if you would share with them one of those URLs or even the URL of today's blog. Thank you so much for that. Now, if you've done both of those, what would you like me to cover? That's the third request. What topics would you like me to cover? You know we do the research and then I'll put my own spin on it and I'll answer the question for you online in this fashion. So there's the request. That's it for this week's show. Loads more lined up for next week. Can't wait. Until then, may your funnel be full and always flowing. Lots to thank this week. Firstly, Rhiannon Rack for research. Thanks, Rhiannon. You've been a great researcher. Stella FT for the cold email templates that generate warm leads. Thank you. Breakthrough emails and cold templates. Aaron Ross, Jason Lincoln and Heather Morgan on cold email template. Get Sidekick for the 12 CRM ready sales templates. Quite like those. Brian from investment banking email templates. And here's a blog that I did on a cold calling email, very related topic. Check that one out as well if you'd like. Thanks to Jason Thea for his amazing production. I'm Hugh McFarlane. It's my pleasure to script and record this week's show, and thank you to Rev for transcription.